Happy February, everybody. This is Ryan Hicks, managing partner with Franchise Supplier Network, and we thought we would record this quick little overview because we are getting a lot of questions from FSN members and beyond. And so we wanted to prepare kind of a quick rundown that focuses on the top 10 things that you should remember as you prepare for IFA 2023. Also on the call, we have Zach Fishman, Dean Hatzi Theodosio, both with Franchise Supplier Network. I think we'll probably know everyone that this is going out to, but for the folks that we don't know, that's who's on the call. And we also have a special guest, Mr. Paul Rocchio. Paul, thank you very much for hopping on with us today. So you can kind of be a backstop and point out anything that we missed and also give your perspective. But Paul, quickly give us a hello and also your official title. I know you've been with IFA for right at 20 years, maybe a little north of it, but what's your official title?
And gentlemen, thank you for including me today. I'm honored to be a part of this and appreciate it, guys. And yeah, a little north of that, I think I'm coming up, not that I'm counting, but March will be 24 years. And these days I call myself the janitor here at IFA. That's my title. But I guess my official title is Vice President of Development and Member Services. So as I always tell folks, we all provide concierge service here at IFA, but specifically on the membership team, I mean, we're responsible for recruitment and retention, but also providing concierge service to our members.
Beautiful. Love it. Well, guys, we'll get straight in as I figure out how to navigate the PowerPoint here. Really, I would just like to pre-frame this by saying that the IFA convention every year is really what I call it the Super Bowl of franchising. And one of the things that, our mission, our purpose is we like to see franchising done right. And, there's a lot of things that suppliers do that are actually quite off-putting. And then other things that suppliers do that are really, can really pave the way for business development. And so we just kind of wanted to talk through this little checklist, if you will. And we do on the last kind of component, we're going to give you guys an open window if you want to reach out and have any further questions. And we've got a little bit of a kind of a solid value add that we're going to throw in at the very end. Zach and Dean, do you guys want to say anything else before we get into the quick list?
I think we should go for it.
All right. So the very first item is really pre-conference sales etiquette. So I'm going to just throw this up as a bullet point and let us kind of chat through. Dean, anything top of mind as it relates to pre-conference sales etiquette?
Yeah, so everyone's getting their pre-sales and their meetings, getting ready for their lists that they're going to be sending out, and then IFA is going to be sending out their list fairly shortly. We're not going to hold Paul to the fire here on a date, but you are going to get it, in the coming days. When you do decide to start sending out your messaging, vet the list out. Make sure you're removing other suppliers that could be competitors. Make sure you're removing existing customers because you want that messaging to be different than your prospecting messaging. You want to make sure whatever messaging you're doing, take the time. Yes, it's a long list. Yes, it might be tedious, but that work you're putting in on the upfront is going to pay dividends on the back end. So just make sure you are vetting out your list. Quick story. About 3 years ago, pre-IFA, I get an email from another supplier. This is back when I was with Franchise Blast, and they're emailing me, and I must have gotten about 7 or 8 emails from the same person. And I had replied to the second email, letting them know I am a fellow supplier, happy to sit down with them and just chat, whatever. And then they still kept on treating me like a franchisor, even offered me like a free swag. So eventually I had to write them a pretty lengthy email, and then their CEO gave me a call, and we had a great chat, and he apologized. But at the end of the day, you don't want to be that supplier. So just take the time and vet the list out.
Yeah, and same thing. If you're a service provider that primarily focuses on home services brands, there's no reason you need to be sending the chief marketing officer for a restaurant brand your widget that is a great tool for operational components of service brands. So just kind of have an etiquette, know that everyone that has made email contact information, and even if you're doing just direct reach outs on whether it's on LinkedIn or whatever, just be cognizant and understand that there's an etiquette. Zach, anything else that you would add to this point before we cruise to the next?
Yeah, the last thing I'd say is that don't just set something in a sequence in HubSpot and forget it. I think that it's really important to actually personalize your messaging, because franchising isn't that big. And I know Paul is nodding his head here. He knows that, how many people have, really made such impersonal approaches to the franchise space when they're getting into the supplier side of it, for the first time. And it's really important to try and build a relationship with people in franchising, because they are notoriously untrusting until you actually have the ability to really, make inroads with them and spend that time, which is why I think that the pre-conference part of it is arguably the most important part of IFA, is getting that right.
And to add to that, I hear this all the time from our franchisor members, especially, during COVID, because everybody tends to utilize LinkedIn to try to reach out and build relationships with people, which I think works. I mean, I use it as well. I always hear is make sure you're, people who are politely persistent will continue to get my ear. Now, how do you define politely persistent? Everybody kind of has a different definition of that, but just don't be a jerk, right? Just you have to know how to read people. You have to know how to take some cues from folks, and we're all hopefully mature, right? And you just got to know how to handle things and kind of read the person and understand what you always want to try to understand what their needs are. At the end of the day, we all have to be thought leaders and to be seen as thought leaders, and that we're here to help alleviate people's pain points. And that's why people go to the convention. They want to walk the trade show floor to see who could alleviate the pain points they're having within their system, whether it's at the corporate headquarters side or, with their franchisees. So that's just my quick 2 cents.
Yeah, and then just to put a bow on this, I'll add that this is a relational, not a transactional world
100%
ecosystem and universe. And there's another story at the last conference that we were at. We're sitting down with a couple of franchisors, and the franchisors are literally openly in the middle of a lunch with a couple of brands represented, just saying, like, calling out a couple of suppliers with how annoying their reach outs are. Like, we understand that there's quotas and things of that nature, but bottom line is don't telegraph that whenever, and don't come across that way, because it's relational business. Any final thoughts, and we'll move it on?
Yeah, so I just wanted to put some data on there. So Paul, here's a question for you. How many suppliers typically are either sponsoring or exhibiting at the IFA? Just a round number, like ballpark.
Well, exhibiting, there's like 300-ish, 325. Sponsoring, good question. I don't know off the top of my head.
So
I have no.
The reason why I bring it up is because there's potential, let's say anywhere from 350 to 400 suppliers that are getting the list that is sending messages out to franchisors, companies, let alone all the individuals that are there. So just be aware of how many emails these people are receiving from other suppliers. So like Zach said, don't just dump it into Cadence and send it out for multiple days leading up to it. Be, short, clear, concise in your messaging, and don't over communicate.
Yep. The last point, which probably builds into some of the other stuff that we have, is like, treat this as an opportunity also to connect with your prospects and also with current clients, which we're going to be discussing. But this is a great place, especially if you have a booth. You can have folks swing by the booth, and just, as we'll get into some of these other items, just be prepared to really just say, look, these are the problem sets that we can help you solve. We are here and would like to connect with you at the right timing. If you don't need anything in this realm for 6 months beyond, that's completely fine. Bring that relational approach, just to say, even if it's to put a face with the name, and you make sure that you guys know each other prior to connecting 6 months down the line. So really kind of take that approach. So the next item, and Zach, if you had anything else, you can jump in and add it, but very basic question, what to pack? So I'll let Zach or Dean, one of you guys, can just run down your thoughts on what to pack.
Go ahead, Dean.
No, I was just gonna say, so it goes without saying that it's pretty obvious what you need to pack, but there's always stuff you forget. So if you do have a booth, take advantage of the fact that there's a case or something being shipped to IFA. Throw in extra scissors, throw in extension cords, throw in power strips, throw in pens, pads, like whatever else you need. Throw it in that case and just get it to Vegas and get it there. And if you're not, pack, things that you might not think of, a water bottle to be refilled while at the IFA, so you can make sure you stay hydrated. Phone chargers, cables, things like that. Everyone's always looking for that. I come with a portable charger even. And then other than that, it's just, little marketing materials, just little things here and there that I can leave with people as I meet with them, just so you can make an impact when you do meet them face to face.
Zach, what do I wear?
Well, it's a great question. I'd say that, and I always think this is really funny. In recent years, people have started to get away from the whole suit thing, and I'd say that for the most part, people are kind of going, some type of combination of a chino, a button down, and then a jacket. Some people are kind of losing the jacket at all. Some people are just wearing branded swag and things of that nature too. I'd say any of those things are fine. The IFA has been a lot more dressed down than it has been in years past. I'd say that it's very rare that you see people wearing a tie. The only person who might be wearing a tie in the entire conference is one of the people on this call, because I think because he's running the whole show. But I'd say that generally speaking, it's pretty rare now. It's a little bit more dressed down than
and Zach, it's even, you're right. We always have to suit up, but it's even rare for IFA staff to have to suit up anymore. Which is even, it's a heck of a lot nicer because I'll bring a sport coat with me, and if I'm having membership committee meeting or supplier board meeting or the IFA board meeting, I'll probably have a sport coat. But other than that, we have logo wear shirts, and we're encouraging the staff to wear those shirts on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of the convention. So the world has changed 100%, right? I can't remember the last time I had to tie a tie, and I'm perfectly fine with that.
Love it. I typically wear my kind of pseudo investment banker look with my sport coat.
I know, man. And you pull it off perfectly too. And you really do.
And then at night I have my perfect rendition of a beautifully a well-touched Robert Graham button down t-shirt, typically long sleeves, maybe flip up the arm cuffs. Anyways, so
if you want to follow extreme dress, or arguably like something to follow, if you really want to impress, he is always dressed to impress, is Paul Pickett. Paul Pickett is arguably one of the best dressed mans in franchising, hands down. That man looks right, 100%.
Make sure he hears 24 hours
a day.
Yes. All right. Meetings. So obviously you want to take advantage of the fact that you're physically in a location with prospects, with clients, and all of the above, even other suppliers that you should get to know. We obviously encourage connectivity between suppliers. And so as it relates to scheduling meetings, Zach, any thoughts on this? Anything that you would recommend?
Yeah, so I'd say that having people come to your booth is ideal in theory, but in practice, what ends up happening is that they don't show up because they run into 70 other people. So I'd say that in an ideal world, there's two things: scheduling it for times that are non-booth hours, where it is during a breakout session that they may not be interested in, or if it's a breakfast meeting in the morning where they meet at that little citizens cafe on the way to the conference center that literally everybody has breakfast at in the morning. Things like that, I think, are really key to be able to try and find times, to do it outside of exhibitor hours. Exhibitor hours is about running into people that, by chance, really, right? It's very difficult to schedule a structured meeting there. So that's what I would say, if it's me, is to try and schedule time around that, and not around times that can be arbitrary and can allow people wiggle room to have an excuse to not show up.
It's a good point. I would just throw in is obviously the booth is a space, and if you're properly staffed and you can have your peeled out 10-minute meat, etc., it's fine to have people come to the booth, and that happens all the time. But generally, I agree with what you had to say, Zach. Dean, anything else that you would add?
No, just a couple last things. Just make them short, because people don't want to sit down for a full hour, go through a full demo. Like keep them short, because they got to get to maybe 5 other meetings in that time frame that they have, if they have a 1 hour break or whatever the case is. So keep it short. That way it leaves you with a call to action for follow-up at post conference, which is really what you want, where you have their undivided attention. And then the last thing is, don't be that organization that's booking meetings off-site during convention hours. If it's an after hours dinner, then that's one thing, absolutely. But it's during convention hours, keep it at the location, like Zach said, within the Mandalay Bay, at the hotel, around the convention. Don't decide to go to the Wynn or somewhere else for a meeting, because it's just wrong, and it's not fair to the IFA for that as well.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that point, Dean. And Ryan, to build on something you said, and I tell this to all new supplier members within IFA, it's crucially important to build strategic alliances with other suppliers. I mean, you guys see it. I've seen it from my vantage point over the years. Everybody cross-pollinates and cross-promotes one another. So so you're not just there to build relationships with, whoever the end user is for your widget, whether it's the franchisor or franchisee or both, but critical and crucial to build relationships with other supplier members. And I tell that to people, all new supplier members constantly. There's so much value to that. I mean, I would imagine you would all agree, but just crucially important, I think.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I can't tell you the amount of times that I have had positive interactions with the franchisor only to learn that it was because they were on a call with XYZ supplier and they mentioned that they're looking for people in this lane, and either the supplier will volunteer that, or when your name's brought up, there's a positive association, like, yeah, this is a good group. That's a good guy. That's a good gal. That's what you want. And rather than the inverse of that, like these people are, I wouldn't recommend working with them. That's not the best thing that you want. And there's 1,000 other strategic reasons, but really well said. Next item, and we'll move these along. Extracurricular / after hour events. We have our worthy social chair and many other things on the call, Mr. Zach Fishman. After our events wise, what say you, Zach?
So there's a couple of things from an etiquette standpoint that are really important for people to note. I'd say the first thing is, don't beg. It's unbecoming and it's a little bit sad. Please don't beg to try and get into events. I think that it doesn't look good for you. I'd say number 2, don't try and sneak into other people's events without asking. I'd say that is a major pet peeve. As somebody who's controlling the largest one, it frustrates the living hell out of people, including me, and we will throw you out. So there's just no reason to do that. Be like I would say, gather the courage and ask the question. The worst thing that could happen is somebody says no. Nothing wrong with that, but you at least ask. And I think that relationships with suppliers, and this ties into it, are really important, almost as important, if not more important than having a relationship with the franchisor, because they hold the keys to a lot of clients that you potentially want to get into, and making them upset, and especially the ones that have the funds to be able to go and pay for a big party, is probably not a great idea for you. So yeah. I'd say that. And then the last thing that I would echo is really that many of the after hours events are typically going to be pretty short, surrounding 1-2 really major ones on each night. Fran Jam, which is a very large one, which is the one I was speaking about earlier, then the IFAs, of course, which is on the last night. I'd say that if you're going to try and find a time to take people out to dinner, typically at the IFA, that time is going to be on Tuesday before the IFA's event. There's about a 2.5 hour time frame where there is, plenty of time to be able to take out a couple prospects, and you have plenty of time to do it as of this recording. So I would strongly recommend that. And then also on Sunday or Saturday, where things are a little bit more decentralized. So that's what I would say. Monday is far and away the worst day to do it. So if you think it's a good idea to do it on Monday, think twice.
I'll add to that something that triages on the first part of what Zach said and on the last great comment that Paul said, which is in the supplier relations thing. So like always like figure out ways to bring value to people, even if it's other suppliers. Do you have a client in your mix that you know has a particular need or is open to look into certain things? Don't be afraid to go ahead and make those connections. And if there is a dinner or, you know, a big dinner party where there's a number of sponsors and you're trying to find your way in, bring something along with it. Say, look, I have a couple of clients that I'd like to bring. Here's who they are, and perhaps you want to meet them. And so that doesn't mean that you're going to get the invite, but in general, relational, not transactional. Bring something to the table. Dean, anything else on this topic after our events?
No, you guys covered it. I agree with that. The only other thing I would say is, if by chance you don't have meetings or there are people you want to hang out with, hang out in the lobby bar of the Mandalay Bay. You
100%,
never know
actually.
when you're going to see people, when you're going to bump into them. Even actually, Zach mentioned it earlier at breakfast meetings. Yes, we're all going to go out. Yes, it's going to be Vegas, but don't pull a Dean and show up late for your big announcement from like at Springboard, or miss your pinning of your CFE when I got certified. When I got my CFE, I missed that one too. But get early, go to the breakfast area. You never know. And if people know you introduce yourself, they may ask you to join. You never know what's going to happen. So just make yourself available.
And if I could add to that, I mean, I tell people all the time, and you guys know this, you know, some of the best relationships are people you meet riding up or down the escalator, on the elevator. I mean, you know, you can't be a wallflower, you know. I mean, if you're an extrovert, you're going to do fine. If you're not, then I encourage them to just, you know, you might be in the wrong business. But at the end of the day, you know, again, like earlier on, you know, that kind of like that 30-second elevator pitch, but it can't, you can't be too salesy about it. Again, you've got to kind of be able to quickly read, you know, the person you're chatting with. But you know, some of the best, you know, relationships I have to this day are people I, you know, like I said, met sitting next to it at a session or, you know, riding down the escalator with. Yeah, you know, can't stress that enough.
Completely agree. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And the kind of random moments, there are a lot of great connections that come out of that. So presenting yourself in person versus remote, I'll just say, kind of quickly speaking to this, and we'll move it along. We live in a time where COVID happened for 3 years going on, felt like 30, and we're not used to being in person as much. So guys, any quick tips on this? You know, I would say make sure that you don't have bad breath. It sounds super terrible to say, but I've been in many conversations when people have bad breath and it's brutal. Bring some gum or something. Make sure that you have good breath. Make sure that you're respecting of people's personal space. Make sure you're not vomiting over them in terms of like trying to, like, the first thing you're doing, you're trying to sell something to them. Be human. Those are kind of the tips that I have. Anything that you guys would add?
Just quickly make sure when you are speaking to somebody in person, because we do it. I've been watching all four of us on this call and we're all the same. We're distracted. It's easy to get distracted in Zoom. Yeah. Stuff's going on. We're on our phones. We're this.
Or at least I do.
When you have somebody's time, make sure you're listening to them. Make sure you're focused and you're making eye contact. I use the trick. I repeat what they just said to me. So that way it's also ingrained in my mind. So I know what they've said. So if they say, oh, well, we're this, we're that, I go back and I'm like, okay, so you have this many locations, you're this, you're that, you know, this is the person I got to reach out to. So that way it's in my head and I filed it away. So pay attention and make it engaging for them.
Yep. Very well said. Next item, booth etiquette. Anything top of mind for you guys on this?
Yeah. So booth etiquette for me is basically don't sit down, don't hide behind your podium or your banner or whatever. You'll see them, They'll be at the show. There's lots of them that are there.
Yeah.
People just sit down and they don't engage anybody, right? You got to be in the aisles. You got to be talking to people. You have to be, stopping people as they walk by. Hey, Paul, how are you? My name's Dean. How you doing? How's the show going? And at that point, I've already asked them 3 questions and I haven't even told them what we do yet, because I got to engage with them to see if he's even interested, right? I got to pull him in, then I could tell him who we are. So I want him to be engaged with me first and ask me what I do before I get him into the booth.
Yeah, and don't try to reel them in. So there's a balance between,
Absolutely.
I mean, you're paying to be there and folks are walking the floor to learn. If they quickly telegraph that they're not interested, don't sit there and try to reel them into a demo or something. Clearly they'll see on your booth a little bit about what you do. And after you give them a very quick synopsis, don't try to hold on to them being there, but also don't be afraid to engage. Zach, anything that you would add to this booth etiquette wise?
If you don't have a booth, don't hang and glom onto other people's booth without asking permission. That's the last thing.
That's a big one.
That's actually really important. Very important.
Completely agree. And just in general, be respectful of people's time. And so we'll throw out, if anyone watching this finds Dean sitting in our booth, send me a picture and we'll give you a reward.
But also, and let me just repeat that, franchisors and franchisees, they're walking the trade show floor. They have a list of what they need. And like I said, they have a list of their pain points, and, what the product and the service you have might not be, one of the pain points they're trying to alleviate, but again, they all like to do business with people who understand franchising. And, for the most part, everybody who is exhibiting understands the business format franchise model. And, and it just gives you a leg up on everyone else. So, you just have to remember that, everybody who is walking around that trade show floor, they may not know that they need you, but if you just spark up a conversation with them and then they realize, because they know what you're doing, they know why they're there. And, again, it might take, depending on what your sales cycle is, you're building a relationship. I tell people all the time, is this your first time exhibiting? Oh, how many new customers are you going to get out of this? You'll be lucky if you get 1 new customer. What you're going to get out of this is, 1,000 new relationships, but you have to continue to foster and build and grow those relationships. And that could take some time, because everybody already has their widget provider. They already have a relationship with somebody, and you got to give them a reason, to continue to want to build a relationship with you and potentially end up, being a customer for you.
Yeah. And if you're speaking with the chief financial officer or the chief executive officer of a massive holding company, and you have a product that you typically, you're working with, the director of marketing is the one that uses it. The CMO is like 3 people removed. That's a prime example of very quick pass on what you do, how you can help. We'd love to have our name in the hat if XYZ ever comes up. And maybe you can share this with your marketing director or your CMO. Be respectful that, the different types of folks that are there. Don't just try to latch on and hold them into a big, long conversation. Be respectful of people's times. And I would say that advice also on the flip side of people, not only not lingering around people's booths, but also, it's just uncouth to have 30, 45-minute chats at booths in general. Moving on to the next item, ICP target research. So ICP breaks down the ideal customer profile. This is just in general for everything that you do for your marketing activities. Most people don't take the time to actually go do an ICP, like full on research, but know your target markets, know who you serve. And when you're doing that pre-conference prep, when you're doing the kind of some of the other items, setting meetings, etc., be very clear and concise on who it is that you serve and the outcomes that you help drive and the problems that you solve, and focus your efforts rather than the spray and pray mentality. Really be thoughtful when you're trying to sit down with decision makers from certain brands. this is just a very important component. And if you know that there's a segment of the population that, by population, I mean in franchising, that you're not the best fit to serve, build relationships. And this is an industry that we all make our living in. So that doesn't mean that you can't talk to someone because they run a restaurant brand and you don't service restaurants. Just be a normal human being. And the bottom line is everyone in the convention makes their living in franchising. And you have to look at it, not what can I get out of this person that I'm speaking with? It's about an overall relational approach and focus. And so kind of know that ICP and drill down really quickly in your conversations, whether this group that you're talking to is someone that you're really best fit to serve. Anything else that you guys have on ICP?
Nope,
No,
I'm good there.
You hit it right on the head, buddy.
All right, yeah.
So 3 C's, Dean, what are the 3 C's and what does this mean?
So 3 C's is basically, it's a brand marketing term. You may have come across it. Basically, you want your messaging essentially of your brand or your organization or even your product to be consistent, so that it's the same no matter who is speaking to your organization. You want it clear so that it's easy to understand. Now, as we get into more and more complicated AI type stuff and data scientists and whatever, sometimes they speak over our heads. You gotta bring it down a level so everybody can understand exactly what it is. And then you want it to have character. There may or may not be a lot of your competitors at the IFA conference, but if there are, they're all saying the same thing, right? They all have a similar story. Yours has got to have character. People want to know what differentiates you,
Exactly.
A from B, but it could be the same, right? You could offer the exact same thing, the exact same service. The product and the messaging has got to be different. And that goes back a lot of it. If we rewind, going back to the beginning of this, about relationships, right? That could be a big differentiator, but that's the character that you got to bring to your messaging. So make sure your messaging is clear, concise, short and sweet, so people understand it.
Yeah, I would even do a little workshop test where you're just role playing, and maybe, if there's 3 people that are going to be in the booth, like literally have a list of the 5 basic questions. Like the most basic question is, tell me about XYZ company. How do you work with franchise brands? Just test and kind of role play out that short, concise messaging, knowing that, whenever when someone asks you that doesn't mean give a 5-minute speech on it. It means I want to know at the highest levels, this is what you do, who you serve, and what I may be able to, what's in it for us and further exploring, et cetera. Is there anything else, Zach, that you would add, or Paul, that you would add to these last 2?
I was going to say the only thing I would sum it up as, it's called problem solving and not solution solving for a reason.
Very well said.
Good point. Well said.
Very well said. Sessions and roundtables, planning and etiquette. There are multiple different tracks, whether it's marketing track, operations track, franchise relations track, etc. You have all that information. If you don't, you can reach out to us. We can help make sure that you're looking at the right place. But basically, you want to go through there and you want to have a game plan. You're there also for your learning as well as your team's learning, and you want to make sure that you're participating in sessions. And also there's roundtable opportunities available. We'll briefly chat about the etiquette there. Anything that you guys would add to this?
I'd say that for the sessions, and I'll let Paul talk about the roundtable since he is kind of the master of that, but I'd say that for the sessions, try to walk into a session and for anything that is within your discipline, and listen you don't need to be there forever, but listen for 5 to 10 minutes, just so you can have a takeaway, so you can kind of talk about that as an overarching theme of the conference. I think that that's always a really nice trick that I have. Now, obviously you guys know that are all listening that Ryan, Dean, and I have a very tricky situation because we need to go to a little of every session at that rate. But we do know that is really important to be able to listen to the overarching themes of what people are talking about. And this holds true for every conference, but I'd say that for the sessions at the IFA especially, it's a really nice icebreaker to be able to talk to people about just their perspective instead of, hey, how you doing? How's your conference? It actually makes it a bit more tangible.
That's a phenomenal point. Like Zach just said, when someone asks, how's the conference? And very often I get asked, what have you learned? make sure that you have some nuggets that you picked up and say, you know what, I found it very interesting in XYZ session. And then you drop a little nugget. Like this is one of my takeaways, and this ties into a greater trend that I see. It's actually a thoughtful response rather than, oh, great conference, things are good, it's good to be back in person. Like actually have something to contribute, and see how quickly you could go to a session and apply that in a conversation, and watch how much better of a conversation that you'll get into. Dean and Paul, anything else on this topic?
I mean,
Just if we're still talking about sessions and not roundtables, for when it comes to sessions, yeah, obviously attend those that are within your discipline. So like if you're a marketing company, then obviously go to the marketing one so you can hear exactly what franchisors are hurting are listening for. But you also want to attend other sessions that are not in your discipline as well, so you can understand what is happening across the franchise organization, right? So again, I was in the operations world, I attended as many operation sessions as possible, but some of it starts to get repeated, particularly when you get into conference season. It's the same topics all the time. So I would attend marketing, I would attend legal, I would attend FDD writing, I would attend whatever, so I could hear what is changing in the world, because it may parlay into what we do in operations. So all that has to factor into it. So you got to make sure you understand not everything, but understand enough when people are talking to you that you can message that as well.
yeah, you guys have said it all extremely well. I mean, at the end of the day, I always tell folks, especially those folks who've never been to the convention before, and they're like, I'm like, listen, it's not a trade show. You're not at your booth from 9 until 5 o'clock at night. You have to go to the educational sessions because in roundtables, because it's all about networking, and you're going to be learning, specifically about your discipline. But you made a really good point, Dean. Yeah, a lot of stuff is repetitious. I mean, I learned something new, every day, every year during conference season. And or I relearn things. Things are always changing within franchising. I mean, it's always about local store marketing. It's always about fran dev. You're never going to have franchising without the legal component, but things change every year, always. And if you want to be able to service anybody in franchising, you have to understand what's going on. So, it's very important to go to those sessions. And yeah, you may not have to stay there for the entire hour, or hour and a half, whatever, but exactly, walk away with a couple of points. You always want to learn something. It's just going to make you more successful at what you're doing, right?
Yeah. And to that point, with the sessions and the first comment that you made, Paul, guys, block out your calendar. Like if you have something super urgent email wise, that's fine. But like if at all possible, just be present. Going back to the other point of presenting yourself in person versus remote, be present. Like obviously you could take calls, but you want to focus your time here. You're investing time, effort, energy, money, all of that. Be present and focus your efforts on the conference. Networking with other suppliers, we already touched on. We won't get into the importance of it because we already kind of have, but just one of the things to layer in something that we just mentioned, ask other suppliers, what are you hearing from franchisors? What are some of the top 2023 concerns, pain points, etc. that you're hearing? What are you seeing folks be successful with? So like you're basically like, even outside of your core competency, you want to have an understanding of what's on your ICP, your ideal customer profile's mind. And so I would layer in kind of the other things we mentioned on networking with other suppliers with kind of some of the points that we just talked about on asking the right questions. Anything else that we'd add to this, guys, and we'll move to close?
Just with the networking with other suppliers, whether they're I would even add in their competitors, right? Go to your competitors' booths, and because you're not there to do, reverse engineer their product. You already have your product, but just talk to them about what the challenges that they're seeing. Maybe it coincides with the challenges you're seeing as well, right? Because maybe you can't break through, in certain aspects of things, but they have a way to do it. And even if they're a larger supplier, go have a conversation with them. You can learn a ton. And it is franchising. Even though some of you might be competitors with each other, you're going to learn. It is a franchise family for a reason. Everybody is willing to help everyone. and there's no reason for it. So don't be shy. Don't be afraid. Walk up to your competitors, ask them questions, talk to them a little bit about them, find out a little bit more about their product as well. You might
Yeah,
be losing business to them. Like,
it's-
why not? Ask them for a demo. I used to do it all the time. Like in 20 plus years of selling software, I would always walk up to my competitors. I don't care if there was Ericsson or Cisco or whoever, I would ask them for a demo and they would be more than happy to give me one. And I would look at their
Good
software.
point. Yeah. Hey, before I forget, can we just go back? We didn't really touch on the roundtable. So if anybody is attending the convention for the first time, go to the roundtables. We have 190 roundtables. We're dividing them up over 2 days. Majority of them are supplier driven. So, it's broken down into various tracks. So obviously, you'll have an opportunity to submit a topic for next year's convention. But, make sure that you go to a topic that's, that's in your wheelhouse. But you got to be very careful. I mean, you cannot sell at these tables and, but everybody's looking to everybody else to be a thought leader. We do have somebody facilitating discussion at the table and you just have to be respectful of everybody who's there and respectful of everybody's time as well. But the roundtables are, we get the highest remarks and feedback we get from the convention. Everybody loves the roundtables more than anything else. So you definitely have to, if you've never been before, go to a table, go to a couple of tables, either ones in your wheelhouse or ones that are not, within your discipline, but you're going to be able to network. And again, if you come across as being a thought leader, somebody's going to say, hey, give me your business card. Let's go get a beer. Let's go get a cup of coffee or something. So, but you just got to be respectful, right?
Yeah. And I'll just add on that. Be focused. Don't go there with your laptop or your iPad sending out emails. You're at the round table. Listen to the person who's the moderator. Listen to the problems that people are discussing.
Excellent point, Dean.
And if you're going to contribute something valuable. Don't just speak to be heard. Speak with something, so something that's going to be valuable to the group.
Exactly.
Very well said. Last kind of final remarks. Zach, you didn't have anything to add? You good?
Covered it.
So last remarks, reach out to us if you have any further questions on anything that we mentioned here. You can email Dean, Zach, or myself directly, or just go to our general email that goes to all of us. Also, if you're a Franchise Supplier Network member, if you have any kind of folks on your dream list, send us an email with 3 people that you're looking to get connected with at the event, and we're eyes and ears, and we'll help facilitate value additive conversation. So use that as a resource. If you stuck through to the end, that means that you're serious about getting the most out of the conference. So don't hesitate to ask us questions, and also send us your top 3. Dean and Zach and Paul, appreciate you guys hopping on and talking through each of those points. Anything additional for each of you as we move to close here?
No, just last comment. Enjoy the conference, guys. It's a great opportunity to network again, to learn, and more importantly, obviously grow your business, but then, grow franchising as well. And I'll just add on what Ryan said. If you are booking meetings, view us as an extension of your team. If there is a conflict of a meeting and you don't want to say no because it's going to ruin, and it's the only time the person has, ask one of the 3 of us to attend that meeting for you. We'd be more than happy to do it on your behalf. So don't hesitate to leverage us.
And, if I could add to something you said earlier, Dean, I mean, granted I'm biased. This is, the premier franchising event for the year, but it's really the franchise family reunion, right? I mean, and we're on track right now to have over 4,000 attendees. If things keep going the way they're going. So it's just a good sign for franchising. It's a good sign for everybody involved in franchising and through IFA, and just looking forward to seeing everybody. Can't wait. We thrive and love this time of year. It's nonstop. It's crazy, but we live for it. We all do.